When you stop to fill up at the pump, do you ever wonder where all that money is going? Or how much is used to build the roads you drive on? When you buy a gallon of gasoline, part of the cost of that gallon is the gas tax. This consists of both a federal component and a state component. The federal tax is fixed at 18.4 cents per gallon, and the state tax varies from state to state, but works out to 28.5 cents per gallon on average. For an average member of the traveling public, this translates to about $275 in gas tax in a given year, $108 federal, and $167 state. So what happens with this money once it leaves your pocket? Let's take a look. The federal portion of gasoline taxes contribute to the Highway Trust Fund, which consists of two primary accounts. 15.45 cents from every gallon is put in the highway account, while 2.85 cents is dedicated to mass transit. These accounts are used to fund transportation projects across the U.S., and guidelines exist to ensure that each state receives a reasonable share of the federal funding relative to its contribution. At the state level, the way in which state gas tax revenue is regulated varies. While some states allow it to be used for non-transportation purposes, revenue is generally directed towards roads and transit. This makes the gas tax a use tax as, in theory, those who drive a lot or have heavier vehicles will use more gas and thus are taxed in line with how much wear they put on the system. But what is a reasonable level of transportation spending, and how does the U.S. compare globally? Currently, countries in the European Union spend about 5% of their GDP on their transportation infrastructure, while China is revolutionizing their system at a whopping 9%. During the peak of the construction of the interstate highway system, the U.S. invested a steady 3% of its GDP on transportation infrastructure. So what is the current U.S. funding level? 2.4% of GDP. This is roughly half the spending level of Europe and a quarter of what China is investing. And don't forget, the U.S. has 50% more roadway length than the European Union and 80% more roadway length than China. Currently, the Federal Highway Trust Fund is in trouble. Expenditures continue to increase while revenues lag behind. In 2011, it is estimated that federal obligations will total $44.3 billion, with only $36.9 billion in revenue. Despite increases, spending levels are still far less than is needed just to maintain the level of performance of our current transportation system. So why can't the gas tax keep up? A decrease in total travel by the driving public is one major reason for weakened gas tax revenues. This is caused by factors such as volatile fuel prices and financial instability. Revenues are also decreased by the presence of hybrid vehicles and increasingly fuel-efficient cars. This is compounded by the static nature of the gas tax, which is a fixed tax that doesn't change as gas prices fluctuate or as inflation impacts the purchasing power of the dollar. For example, the federal tax has stayed the same since it was raised to 18.4 cents in 1993, but its buying power has been reduced by 35%. Transportation infrastructure is vital to the economy of the United States. In 2007 alone, $8.3 trillion of goods traveled on U.S. roadways. Infrastructure investment has a long-term benefit by growing the network which transports our goods and moves our workforce, directly correlating to national economic growth. It also yields a short-term benefit by creating tens of thousands of American jobs that can't be outsourced. Under the current system, the funding to maintain our infrastructure is in serious shortfall. We've got to define our national priorities with the understanding that to keep the American economy moving, we've got to invest in the assets that literally keep America moving.